Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about the 12 books I read in the month of January. So without further ado, let's get into the video. For those of you that usually watch my YouTube channels, I think you guys can tell that I have a new background. I moved, and really sadly I don't have my bookshelves up yet, but fingers crossed that I will in a couple of weeks. It's also why I've been a little bit MIA. Diving headfirst into the reading wrap up, we have House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas, which is the second book in the Crescent City series. I also read the first Crescent City series. I didn't do a December reading wrap up. I'm going to talk about my thoughts with it in this one because I kind of have very similar thoughts. It isn't until about 80% of the book that I go, okay, this is a Sarah J Maas book. The Crescent City series, while I understand that the world building is needed, it's a lot. Like, it's astronomical. People warned me going into that it was astronomical, that it was a lot of world building, and I understand that. But I gave this 4 stars on Goodreads, and I think it's actually more of a 3-star, 3.5 star. I kind of go back and forth because the thing is, lots of things are happening, but almost too much is happening, and it also slows down. It gets a bit boring, almost a little bit repetitive. And the only reason I rated it 4 stars on Goodreads was because of the last line. If you've read Crescent City series and Crescent City 2, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. But I also feel like I can't bump up ratings on books just because of one sentence in a freaking 800-page book. Like, it's just a little bit unfair. So these are my unhinged thoughts. I firmly believe that Bryce Quinlan is a carbon copy of Aylin. I think it's not an original character. A lot of things actually felt copied, a lot of characters felt copied, which was really disappointing. And the only reason that it really irked me is because, for those of you that don't know, Throne of Glass is like my Roman Empire. I adore that series with my entire heart. I wouldn't change a single thing about that series. I reread it all the time. So that's probably why Aylin, her character and her mannerisms are very fresh in my brain. And the thing is that Bryce has that snarky, strong character. And it's really disappointing because Feyre from A Court of Thorns and Roses is very different to Aylin, but they're both strong female characters in very different ways, whereas Bryce is just the same. And it also weirdly felt like the same trauma. This is a completely spoiler-free review, so I obviously can't go into depth with that. It felt like a carbon copy, and I just really don't like that. I would have liked to see a bit more of a different original character because it's a completely different series, and I think that that's maybe part of the reason why I couldn't connect to the characters. And it's so weird because I'm reading this book, and like, especially for the first book, the last 200 pages, I was like, oh my god, finally, this is amazing. Because before that I was just bored shitless, if I'm being honest. Last 200 pages, and obviously last 200 pages in this, it's action packed, so I'm like, yes, like, keep reading. It has me hooked, but I don't care. There's people that are dying, there's people that are getting hurt, and their main goals are being taken away from them. I don't care. I'm just not emotionally invested, and I'm not emotionally connected. And I especially know that I'm not because I picked up House of Flame and Shadow. I'm 100 pages in. Some perspectives I absolutely hate, and like, I really just am not connected to you, and then other ones I adore and love and can't put it down. So with that being said, if you like Sarah J Maas's other work, I urge you to push through, to buy the audiobook, and to just keep going so that you could read the third book, House of Flame and Shadow. That is my official recommendation. Whether you like Crescent City or not, completely up to you. I hope that you guys do like it. If you're like me and had to get the audiobook and push through it, it's worth it. Now, sticking in the category of romantasy, I read Heir of Broken Kingdom, which is a 6-star read for me because I wrote her. This is the second book in my series, Heir of Broken Fate. The first one is on Kindle Unlimited and Amazon. It is about a princess that runs towards the Fae to ask for help to free her oppressed people, only to find out that the Fae need her help more, and she needs to save not only the entire Fae race, but magic itself. It has enemies to lovers, dragons, griffins, mermaids. Who did this to you? One bed trope, elemental magic. It truly has everything you want and need in a romantasy, and I highly recommend, and I very highly recommend it, obviously because I wrote it, but because the second book, it's so elevated. And like, guys, they look so beautiful together. This is the only printed copy of Heir of Broken Kingdom. She comes out on April 9th, and I had to read her this month before I sent her off to my editor for the last final round of edits before I publish her. I just love her. I just really love her. I don't want to say anything because I don't want to spoil it, but let's just say that you're going to read this book and then be banging down my doorstep for the third book. That I just really read the first book so you can read the second. Highly recommend it. 6-star reads. I'm honestly just very proud of myself because I just love it. Now we have another 6-star read, which was my first 6-star read of 2024. I cannot believe that the second book I read in January, the second book I read of the year, was a 6-star read, and that is the Mindfuck series by St. Abby. And I very sadly just found out that she actually passed away a few years ago. Heartbreaking. This book is on Kindle Unlimited and Amazon. Pretty sure that is the only place that you can get it. The Mindfuck series is 1 to 5 books in one. Each book is around 140 to 160 pages, so I binged this in like 2 to 3 days. I could not put her down, and I mean quite literally. I was taking this with me wherever I went, to the gym, in the bath, like cooking. I truly could not put this thing down. I read her on Kindle Unlimited, by the way, because she is thick, obviously, because she's 1 to 5 books. I thought about this book for days after. I read several books after this and I still think about this book. It's about an FBI agent who's hunting a serial killer. Little does he know that he's dating this said serial killer. And I think why I love this romance so much is because yes, it's 50% romance, but there's such a heavy element of thriller, of action, and you have little breadcrumbs that she leaves trails of until the last book, where you finally find out why the serial killer is doing what she is. And it is heartbreaking. I was sobbing, but also it just keeps you enthralled in the entire book. It keeps you captivated. I just couldn't put it down. One, because I loved the element and I loved how like she nearly gets caught. I love the action. I love the romance between them. I think that their banter and like their connection is really great, but also just finding out her story and her character just really keeps you entertained the entire time. Very heavy trigger warnings for SA, and if you don't like gruesome things, don't pick up this book. Now my next read is the second book in the series, and I gave it 5 stars, and that book is Keeping 13. Another very heavy book, a very big trigger warning for domestic violence and abuse, child abuse. I will say I love this book a lot more than Binding 13. Binding 13 for me was, I loved it, but also I was very much aware of how big the book was, because I don't know if you guys can see this, the font is very small. It's like a textbook, and I'm pretty sure it's like 800 pages. I read the second book on my Kindle, and just I highly recommend it. It is a lot better if you just read it on Kindle. This series is so triggering for me. So Binding 13 I had to go quite slow with reading, and it's so weird because Keeping 13 is a lot more triggering, but I got through it faster for certain reasons because it felt like closure in some way, so it was a bit easier to read it. I truly don't know how to describe or summarize how I feel about this book, because it's amazing, it's beautiful. Chloe Walsh does a fantastic job of portraying abuse and how it feels to be in a household with abuse, what the child goes through, the many emotions, how people deal with trauma in different ways, because she shows that through the siblings. Chloe Walsh just has done such a beautiful job, and if you haven't read it already and it's not a trigger for you to read things about abuse and domestic violence, I highly recommend reading the series Binding 13. I really can't express enough how much I love this series. I love it. And I was sobbing. I was crying, sobbing. One minute I'm laughing and then the next minute I'm sobbing. She pulls out all the emotions in you, and that's exactly what I love in a book. Next one we have is The Co-Worker by Frida McFadden. I rated this 4 stars, and look, this was an amazing book. It definitely kept me on my toes the entire time. I love reading Frida McFadden. I read her as like a filler book, because her work keeps you from not going into a reading slump. So I usually read like a romantasy or fantasy, then I'll read romance, and then I'll read thriller, just so I don't slip into a reading slump. And when I read thriller, I'll read a Frida McFadden. They're short, they're quick, she keeps you engaged the entire time, they get to the point, they're perfect for what they are. The only reason I gave it 4 stars is now I'm kind of catching on to Frida McFadden, and her twists and turns and plot are so out there. The endings, the revelations, the plot twists, they are so astronomical and so out there that when I'm reading now, I am now expecting that. I'm now thinking outside the box. I'm now thinking, oh my god, where could this go? And because my mind is so open, that when these huge plot twists happen, I kind of just sit there now and go, okay, cool, that was a good one. Like, they don't hit like they used to, and maybe I need to take a Freida McFadden break so that they do hit like they should be. But because she's so good at what she does, I'm truly like, when I'm reading, I'm going, oh, maybe this person, this, like, go read her, she's amazing. Also, that's not to say that I'm guessing it. My theories are just so out there that when it happens and it's also an out there theory, I'm like, okay, that was a cool theory. Do you know what I mean? I need to stop guessing. Next we have The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. I love Christina Lauren books. This was average. I'm so sorry to say, this was just very average. And I think part of the problem is that the two romance books that I read had astronomically different plots. We have the Mindfuck series, which is about serial killers and FBI. Then we have Binding 13, which has very heavy domestic violence. There's plot lines in these romance that keep you going. Whereas I picked up Christina Lauren and there was no plot besides the romance. Totally fine. That is fine. But that's why I'm saying it was just average. I believe I ended up rating it 4 stars on Goodreads. It's more of a 3.5. I truly couldn't really connect to the romance of it until about 50% of the way through, where the male main interest started being really cute to her daughter, and then that kind of made me go, okay, that's really cute. Then I started blushing, then I started getting into it. But it is very average, which is so weird, because when I think about it, the plot idea and the concept of the book is actually very unique, extremely unique, and that's why I am going to recommend it. I do recommend reading it. I really think I just shouldn't have read it after reading the Mindfuck series, where it had such a big like thriller plot aspect. This one's really, really cool. I'm gonna read this because I just tried to summarize it and it just didn't work. Jess Davis hears about Genetic Alley, a buzzy new matchmaking company that claims to find you the one using a DNA equation. Suddenly love doesn't seem quite so far out of reach, until her test shows an unheard of 98% compatibility with Genetic Alley's founder, Dr. River Penner. Jess already knows Dr. Penner, and this man is 100% not her soulmate. Yet as the pair are dragged from one event to the next as the ultimate diamond pairing that could make Genetic Alley a fortune, Jess begins to realize that there might be more to the scientists and to the science behind a soulmate than she thought. So it's a really cute idea. It is a very, very unique idea for a romance book. I think I just should not have read it after the Mindfuck series and Keeping 13. Next up we have the 2 books that I read on my Kindle, which is actually just an iPad that I have Kindle downloaded on and that I have decorated. I don't use my iPad for anything else but Kindle, so it truly does feel like a Kindle to me. The first book I read on my Kindle was The Perfect Child by Lucinda Berry. Lucinda Berry is really good at thriller. I rated it 4 stars. The only thing that I'm kind of disappointed in, it did keep me on my toes, but I wish it went further. So it's about a child that they adopt who was an orphan who came into the hospital that both the couple work at. She was severely abused and beaten, again trigger warning for abuse and child abuse. She was severely malnourished, and they take her home after lots of like tests and doctors, like it's the whole thing, after she's recuperating, and then shit starts to go south. Just wish that it went one step further than it did, and the ending was atrocious. I'm not gonna lie guys, the ending was really atrocious. The only thing that saves it is the sequel that the author posted. Came out with a sequel that's around 100 pages just to summarize everything and to give it a very nice bow. So very much orphan vibe, great vibes, very scary. I just wish it took it one step further, and that then goes on to the second book that I read on my Kindle, which was A Welcome Reunion. It has like welcome crossed out. I gave this 4 stars because I'm so glad that the author came out with a sequel just to summarize everything and to give that ending that the readers deserved. It did end the book really nicely. I'm so glad that there was a sequel. I usually hate reading sequels, but this one was just 100% needed, especially because I read it back to back. Like I finished the first book and went, okay, sequel, started reading. It just felt like I was reading the ending of the book. Yeah, and I really loved it and I highly recommend it. And that is it for the 12 books that I read in January. I hope that you guys really liked this video. If you read an amazing book this month, please comment down below because I love having book recommendations, and I'll check it out. Bye!